Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning into the RW. This is your host, Brandon Macy, and I'm very glad to have a couple of our interns with us today. They joined us at the beginning of January. We have Jeremiah Lascuna, and we have our very own Nate Hidalgo.
There you go. Yeah.
So glad to have both of y'all with us. We decided to start, an intern program, and we have 4 interns, so you're going to be able to hear from the other 2 coming up in the next few weeks. But we're excited to have you guys with us, and why don't you tell a little bit about, Jeremiah, you can start. Just tell where you're from, your name, and just a couple maybe interesting things about you. You're single, any of those kind of things for the large audience out there.
Well, where I'm from is kind of the question that's hard for me to answer. Where I currently live is Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
But I'm really from the Georgia district, Georgia area.
Okay.
So yeah. And what was the other question?
I mean, just tell a couple of things about yourself.
Single?
You
The most important one.
you came here to Roywood because you wanted to, broaden your ministry.
Right.
And you're an incredible drummer.
Thank you.
You do a lot of things with social media, even the podcast.
Yeah.
So you're used to being kind of on the other side of the podcast.
Yeah. Coming from, the smaller, areas of, churches and stuff, you definitely have to wear many hats. So, thank God I had interest in all things tech because we didn't really have people for that. So, I grew up, playing drums. I was in the front row, playing the tambourine, watching the drummer.
Before they took tambourines away from churches, right?
Yeah. But, I started to have a love for, film, photography, which definitely was a need in the church. So I started helping out with social media, recaps, announcements, and then to trying to learn guitar so that we could broaden our music ministry because, everyone's a drummer.
Sure, sure. I mean, it's like that's like the go-to instrument, right? If you grow up in church.
Yeah, you can basically go to a conference and be like, let me guess, you're a drummer. You're a drummer.
But I will say you're not the everyday drummer. I mean, you're a great drummer.
No, dude, there's some amazing drummers out here. So I'm really happy to be here and grow, not just, in drums, but, life, ministry, leadership.
Sure.
I feel like Royalwood is really the place that kind of has all the keys and tools. So I'm just every day learning and growing.
Well, man, I appreciate you saying that. We've, Pastor has been here for, I'm 40 now, so 37 years. So
Wow.
He's been here for a long time. And I think a lot of things, sometimes people see the place where you are and they don't know everything that goes into that. It's like, you guys were a part of our staff meeting on Monday, and then you guys were with us on our leadership summit with all of our leadership this last weekend. And you see all the things that go into running a church at this scale. And I mean, there's a lot of churches that are bigger than us, but if you want to do something well, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And one of the funniest things that people have said to me through the years is well, what do you do at the church? They're confused.
That's the thing.
They're really confused as to what we do on a daily basis. Yeah. And I'm like, you guys, in just the short time that you've been here, have got to see that we stay extremely busy. And all the time.
It's
it's
kind of like, if you're not a pastor, what do you do?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It's like, well, you guys know all the stuff that you enjoy. Yeah, we do all of that.
Do that.
And I mean, I think people don't understand, and I mean rightly so. They don't understand all of the inner workings of a church and what it takes for media and what it takes. Just like this last Sunday, for instance, we had a lot of visual aspects in the service, videos that Sister Macy did, and our pastor's wife, and other things. The amount of practice that goes into that, the setup that goes into that, the sound that goes into that, so many of those aspects. And one of the things that, and I, I'm blessed with the opportunity to oversee a lot of those things and help in all of those departments, which is fun for me because it's always something different, you know. Sometimes I'm talking about sound and media, sometimes I'm talking about different things, and so I enjoy that aspect of it. But even after we leave the office, I'm having Zoom calls a lot of times with departments and trying to figure out, especially in COVID, like how do you navigate some of the challenges of COVID and having less volunteers and all that sort of thing. So it's exciting, and I'm excited to have you guys here because y'all are helping us in a lot of these aspects. You've been working in sound and media, and you play other things too. Yes, I know you're just mentioning the guitar, but you are one of those people that I tend to hate, which is the guys that play everything.
No.
And as much as he's going to act like he doesn't, he plays keys, he plays drums, electric. He's trying to play the field. I'm
trying to sing like you, bro.
Whatever. Don't pattern your life after me. But we're also happy to have Nate with us. And Nate, why don't you tell them kind of where you're from and where you've been living recently?
Yeah. Well, born and raised in Miami, Florida. 305, 305.
All right. There we go.
Yeah. I was actually not born and raised in church, like Pentecostal church. I was raised in a smaller Spanish church. I've been going out for 7 years now with POCC with Pastor Hidalgo. And this opportunity opened up when I came to a spontaneous trip to Texas to meet with Brooklyn Hidalgo and Emily, which is Lewis's. I'd never met Lewis before, Lewis Pacheco, and I showed him one of the songs that I released. I write music, so I showed him a song that I released, and he spoke to me about the internship, and I was like, man, this seems like a really cool opportunity because I've been praying about an opportunity to open up. Literally January 1st. If nothing would have opened up January 1st, I would have been studying my paramedics in Florida. That was the plan, and God moved, and I believe that this is definitely a divine move from God, and I'm just excited, man. Just being here has been great.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and I mean, dude, you have an amazing voice. I wish I could sing as high as you can.
Oh my gosh.
But I've heard some of the songs that you've written, great stuff.
Yeah.
And I believe there's going to be.
That's good.
And yeah, it's really good.
He's about to go viral, and he's my roommate.
Well, you got now. You got somebody to push you in social media now that he's on the media side of things. So I mean, that's great, man. And like I said, you know, we're glad to have y'all here. One of the main focuses at Royalwood has always been music, and we're blessed. I mean, you mentioned this, but we've got so many like really good drummers right now. Mm-hmm. When I can promise you, for the longest time, I played drums here for like 16 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a long time since I've even played the drums.
Wow.
But it was at a time where the way that I started playing the drums was because our one drummer didn't show up. And so my mom was like, go get on the drums.
Go get him.
And I was like, I couldn't even play the hi-hat. I was literally like kick, drum, and snare. Okay, that's all I had. That was all that was in my repertoire, right?
Oh my God.
At like age 14 or whatever I was. And so then I started playing and you know, I took lessons and I did a lot of stuff. But I'm saying all that to say, again, that was kind of a long time ago. Now we've got a bunch of guitar players, bass players, we've got a lot of singers, we've got a lot of talented people that are a part of Royalwood, and we're blessed with having that. But you know, the things that you guys have been able to add while you've been here is just incredible. And the hope is that you guys can pick up some things here that you can take back with you that would help you grow your ministries. But Nate, why don't you just share maybe a couple things? I know you're in EMT, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. But I mean, what are some of your goals? I mean, what are some of the things that you're wanting or hoping to do in the future for God?
One thing that I feel that's something that God's really been pulling at me is ever since I went to Scotland in 2017, I graduated high school, and I was going to join the Marines. And then I got some family friends saying, don't do it. So I was enjoying the Coast Guard. And I went on a youth on missions trip to Spain. Yeah. And somebody spoke over my life and said, rearrange your plans for the future, because that's not God's will for your life. He doesn't know who I am. And he didn't know that what I was going through, contemplating what the decision I was going to make next. And long story short, God opened the door to go to Scotland, and that's where I found music, and that's where I started my songwriting, and that's where I developed a real passion for music and songwriting and just creating, and that's something that I'm just starting off, but I believe that there's something there that God has instilled in me. I believe that it was a dormant gift that was inside of me that God stirred up in Scotland, and I believe that there's something.
Now, how old were you when you went on that trip?
I was 18.
And you're how old now?
22.
22. So I know one of the things, and obviously I mentioned this already, that you sing and do all that, but one of the things is you've gone on a lot of missions trips,
correct,
right?
Yeah. Yes,
so
sir.
You've done a lot of missions work.
Yes.
What, like Portugal?
Portugal, we went to Spain, because Portugal is right next to Spain, so we did some works in Spain. So when I was in Scotland, I had the opportunity to go to France and Ireland, Bulgaria, and Amsterdam, and we did work there as well. We did ministry, but we also work stuff like ministry involves, painting, just the dirty work too that nobody sees, that behind the scenes work. So we did a lot of those too. So a lot of stuff, like opportunities like that was very beneficial.
And what you mentioned is absolutely true. I think a lot of people don't understand, and I can tell you that everybody on staff has done this, is that so much of ministry work includes everything. Absolutely. Like sometimes you're unloading groceries.
Literally.
I mean, literally. Yeah. Like sometimes you're painting, sometimes you're doing carpentry work. I mean, it's like you wear a lot of hats. Right. And to me, if you're going to be a servant, you can never outgrow that. Like you always have to have that willingness to do whatever it takes to get it done.
Sure.
And Pastor and Sister Macy both, now that they're up more in their years, they're not doing as much of that physical stuff. But growing up, I got to see them doing all of that. I mean, setting up chairs, tables, doing all this stuff.
Another thing too, yeah.
And the thing that bothers me in ministry is when people get into a place of ministry and they almost feel like that's above them. Like, man, it's definitely not. If you're in a place of ministry, you got to be willing to take out the trash. You got to be willing to do all those things, because first of all, I feel like in ministry, more things are caught than are taught, right? So I can sit down and tell you guys, hey, here's the things that would be great to do. But what would be better is to say, hey, look at your leaders, look at your mentors that you're working with, and see what they're doing.
Absolutely.
They're willing to do whatever it takes to get things done, and that never goes away. I think if you're going to lead people, then you have to say, oh, I want to get in here with you. I'm not just going to talk down to you and say, here, I want you to do these things, but there are things that you got to be willing to do also. Go ahead.
And there's another thing that I always has like concrete in my head, and it says that when it says leaders lead from the back, and I believe that in the beginning, like in the process where we're just talking about what was Stephen, wasn't he like a
it was
server or something? He was a server.
And
he got called like one of the greatest callings, and seeing the miraculous done, and I believe that leaders do start in the back, and you can even and when you see the leaders in the front, you can see those great leaders. And you can see their habits that they build in the back,
right?
And it's just in the light now, what I mean. So that's also something that's very cool.
No, you're absolutely right. Now, Jeremiah, what about you? I mean, I know you've obviously got aspirations in media and video and that sort of thing, but how about anything outside of that, or what are your thoughts on where you could take your media ministry from here?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, growing up, church life, ministry wasn't something that you thought of, not necessarily as a career, but so for me, growing up, I was kind of the oddball. Like my family, is very educated and successful in those things, and my passions were always in the music, ministry, and film, which is all great and stuff. But I was never really taught that you could do this, like full time or just everyday life. So when I was 17, 18, I really felt the call to help in my youth ministry. There was definitely a lack in our community, and so I had a huge burden to kind of bring back what youth ministry used to be. Kids were coming to church, Holy Ghost fires, and there was such a loss of that, and so my heart kind of ached for that. And then so during that time, I kind of found this new movement of what we kind of see here of, church culture and how you can be relevant, but also, have truth and have those things. And so my passion is to bring the attraction, back to the gospel. And so like for me, like my passion and something I want to pursue is really to, have a creative way to, spread the gospel, film, media, and it's crazy, like the pandemic and just everything, like the world relies on, social media.
I mean, big time.
Technology.
Zoom and all
so
this other stuff.
It's kind of our jobs to stay relevant and to stay, in the know, because, like for us here at Royalwood, our live stream presence is huge.
Right.
We have people from Canada, the Philippines. Like imagine if our broadcast team, or imagine if we didn't even have live stream, like all of those lives or souls that, like we couldn't be able to touch. So like my heart really lies within like that department, and always pushing for excellence, and because like at the end of the day, like I don't know, it's just something I'm really passionate about, obviously music, but I don't know, that's just something that's really been heavy in my heart.
Well, you said something that really sticks out to me, and that is, making the gospel attractive.
Right.
There has to be something there. And I know the Bible says that no man cometh unto the Father unless the Spirit draweth him, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. But what is going to be the hook to draw people? There's got to be something there that first catches their eye.
Right.
Because, for instance, and this is one of the things that Pastor, my dad, has always done, is he's always wanted the outside of the building to look nice, like the grass, the campus, all that stuff. Because he's like, if somebody drives by and it looks like an abandoned building, first impression, who's going to want to come into that? Or who's going to want to be a part of that? And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, when we come to church, I'm still one of those people that's like, I still think we should look nice, right?
Yeah.
Like I think we should still present ourselves well, because it should be where, I remember working in corporate world that the saying always was, hey, dress for the job you want, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's what's happening in the corporate world, then what do people look at us like if we're dressing like, we just woke up and we come into church? People are going, that's the way you present yourself to God. Like, to me, I'm looking at it like, this is the way I'm presenting myself to him. I'm saying, God, I'm trying to give you my best. And I want other people to look at that and go, wow, maybe I need to dress for the job that God wants me to have. So, the way that we present the gospel is important. And, you go back to the book of Acts, which is what we build everything, right? That's what we look to and say, here's what we're trying to emulate, right? The book of Acts. They went house to house, right? Well, the best way to go house to house today is by social media, by, live stream, by all these things. There's no way in the city the size of Houston that, first of all, it would take you 2 hours to get from one side of Houston to the other side, right? So I can't drive 2 hours to the other side of Houston to go talk to somebody about the gospel. But what I can do is a podcast where we talk about something that can go not only all over Houston, but all over the world. Why would we put a cap on that and say, no, we just want to reach our community, when it can go far beyond that? We actually have members of Royalwood that are only online members. Right. And one of the families that Pastor talks about all the time, which is the Paris family out of Alberta, Canada. I talk to them probably 3 times a week. Andrew, the dad, literally messaged me all the time. So every Sunday he messages me a picture of him watching our service. Wow. And he's like, that's sitting here with the family. We love you guys. We felt the presence of God in our living room. We are literally their church. Yeah. They don't go anywhere else.
Crazy. Like, how do you even, how do you even find us,
Yeah, and I don't know how they actually found us, but we are literally their church. They watch every Wednesday, every Sunday, and they consider us their church. And he just wrote me the other day and he said, be praying with me because we're thinking about me trying to get a job in Houston.
Wow.
Because we want to be a part of Royalwood.
Oof.
And I'm like, wow. And we got other people that are like, oh, we just moved because we got 25 cents more an hour at another job. So we decided to move cities. Wow. And you got people like this that don't have the opportunity to be involved in a church going, I'll move there. I don't care. I'll find a job. I'll move there. I mean, Canada's another country. I know we don't look at it like it's another country, but it is. I know it's kind of like the North America, right?
Yeah.
Or the North America.
North America.
Well, like, and one thing, like, why I said attraction was because David Bernard came to my church a couple months ago, and he was telling us, like, the steps of what it takes to grow an effective church.
Yeah.
And the first thing he said was attraction. You have to attract your community to the church.
Yeah.
And as kind of like a creative person, like, I feel like my job, is to attract people,
be a magnet
that, who don't even know who Jesus is, but it's like, oh, like, that's cool. Like, they have, good music and stuff. And I feel like if I could just attract those people in, I've done my job.
Right.
From there, we have our connect teams,
right.
We
awesome,
like,
Well, what did God call us to be, right? He called us to plant the seed, okay?
Right.
And the Bible says that he will bring the increase.
Right.
It's not us that brings the increase. Our job is to throw out that seed. And so writing songs that attract people, you're singing, music, media, all of these things are seeds that we're putting out. Yeah. You're going to catch some people by media. You're going to catch some people by song. Mm-hmm. There's all these, I love to fish. So to me, it's like the more hooks you can get in the water, the more fish you're going to catch, and it's not about trying to grow the biggest church. It's not trying to do those things. It's about the kingdom. Again, we have people that are watching our services that may never come into the sanctuary ever. Mm-hmm. But it's not about that. It's about changing people's lives from a distance that we may not be able to reach. It's a great platform.
Yeah.
So, I'm really excited about what you guys are, bringing to the table. The way it kind of works with our internship. So if you're listening to this, watching this, and you're interested in the intern program, the way it works is you initially sign up for a 6-month internship. It is a paid internship. You're not going to get rich by being an intern. These guys will tell you. But we do take care of the interns, and we do that
very well, very well.
Well,
High
I appreciate
class.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
But we, if you're from out of state, we do have a place for you to live. You get a weekly pay, you get a monthly gas stipend, and then you're obviously able to plug into ministries. You're able to spend time with mentors. And then you guys, after that 6 months, have a chance to kind of renew for another 6 months. So, we're excited about it because honestly, it brings a lot of fresh ideas to us. I don't consider myself old.
Right.
But I know that I'm not in the generation that you guys are in. Yeah. And so I appreciate like the fresh ideas that you guys bring to the table and just a fresh perspective because, we are trying to be, you spoke about this, being relevant to teenagers, to people in their early 20s, to, 30s, 40s, 50s. And so in order to do that, I think you have to be around all of those, influences to be able to do that.
Yeah, and like I think it's so cool that, like everyone here is super like-minded, like everyone wants the same goal, has this vision to kind of reach outside of the four walls, so I think that's really cool. And then one thing about the internship is I think it's really cool, and something I really wanted to do was I wanted to kind of be like one of the first people to do the internship because when you look back, it's kind of a cool moment, like me, Nate, Jordan, Jocelyn are like the first interns, so like who knows what, it could be like in the next years, you guys may have like 20, 30 interns, like,
I mean, that would be awesome. And, when we first started talking about this, obviously there was a lot of thought going into it. It's like, okay, but where do we put them? Like, how do we do this? Like, how do we keep up with everybody on a weekly basis? How do we make sure that they're always plugged in to something and still give them an opportunity to work outside jobs, like you being an EMT and that sort of thing. And so there was a lot of discussion that went into this from the beginning. And I think it's always a trial by error. You always go, okay, well, let's just do this thing and let's see what happens. Yeah. And, there was talks with you guys, pastors, the main talk being you better send them back or else. But there was a lot of talks of, hey, what can we do to help? Like, how can we be a part of this? And it's a great honor for us to be able to give something to you guys that affects other places outside of here. Yeah. And what I know is anytime you do things for God outside of yourself, you always get things back. And I'm not saying that you do it thinking, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get something back. It's not that. It's that, hey, I want to help somebody. And because of that, God turns around and he'll bring the increase back to you. Yeah,
for sure. Like, and my hope is that, I can take these tools, these resources and connections and plug back, into like my church or like, all of the surrounding churches around me. Cause, that's basically what it's all about. Just building each other up in the kingdom, like we're all the same organization, there is no competition. Like, we just want to be able to, do our best to, please God. So,
well, and, you're saying this, and I think one of the main things is we do have to be more kingdom minded. I have a lot of people that come on this podcast who do not have the same religious affiliation as me. But the thing is that we're all working towards the same thing.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And I'm not saying, understand what I say when I'm saying that. I'm not saying that because of that I am going back on things that I believe, but what I am saying is these are people that are making a difference in people's lives. Yes. That are playing a huge part in people's communities, that are writing songs that we sing every Sunday.
Yes. Yeah.
That's maybe they're not the same religious affiliation that I am, but they're writing songs that we're singing that are bringing people to God, that they wrote so it would bring someone to God. And I think we've got to be the benefit where we can be the benefit. And when it comes to us agreeing with each other, we don't have to agree on each thing. But what we can do is we can find out what things we do agree on.
Right.
Like common ground. Yeah.
And that's where the common ground lies.
Awesome.
Good. Hey, we both love God.
Yeah.
we both believe that you should live a good life, that you should, support your family, that you should support your community. I mean, these are all things that we agree on.
Right.
And when we find a common ground there.
And the impact on that is so huge.
It is.
Like what's awesome now about like our movement is I feel like, we've been in like a bubble. And for now, to have apostolic artists and creatives, and it's like a whole new world. And like now we have people like on top of the charts, and like you see people like, and it's a really good feeling to kind of be like like I belong there, like those are kind of like our people. And so it's really amazing to see that our movement is growing outside of what it used to be, or kind of like be like, what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
Cool.
And you can't feel like, and this is one thing that's going to be trivial to a lot of people, but we can't feel like that, UPC, which is what we are, right? United Pentecostal Church International, has the monopoly on salvation, first of all, because there's not a place that I can find that in the Bible
right,
where it says, if you're not UPCI, you can't see heaven. Now, it does say, that you must be born again.
Amen.
There's other things that the Bible says, and I believe in those things.
Amen.
But it's not, that is not dependent on just one organization.
Right.
Now, the reason that I'm a part of the organization that I'm a part of is because I feel like it's very close to the Bible.
Yeah.
And it's been beneficial for me. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm a part of it. But I'm also not going to look at someone else and condemn them,
right?
Correct.
Because they grew up in a certain way.
Absolutely.
Or, I mean, you know this, we grow up, and you said this, with being in a bubble where we never think of anything outside of that bubble.
Right.
We live within this bubble and we go, okay, well, here's the parameters of everything in life. And what we've realized is there was a time where media was frowned upon.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking about like...
A guitar was scary.
The guitar was... my mom talks about a time where they could not have drums, Wow. So I'm saying... And of course, that's a long time ago, right?
Yeah,
but I'm saying sometimes we have to expand that and go, look, God wants to do things for people in a bigger arena than this little small box that we've created. And again, that doesn't mean going back on biblical beliefs.
No. Right.
It means that we can reach outside of that and find common ground with people and be an influence.
There's so much common ground. I have so many friends who are like you're a drummer? Like, man, like I literally have like a best friend, and he's like, dude, apostolic musicians are insane.
Yeah.
He's like, bro, like, can I come to your church? Like, hey, can I watch you guys play? Like, and like, that's kind of like a start of conversations,
right.
like, well, why don't you tell me more about, like what you believe and why? And so I love what you said about, like, it's not just us going to heaven,
right.
and just to find common ground. And, if you love Jesus, you can have a conversation right there. Like, there's so many ways to spread the gospel.
Right.
And so I think that's awesome.
Well, let me say this. You guys are doing a great job here. We're excited. Hopefully you guys plan on staying the longevity of your allotted time, because we're enjoying having you guys here, and we think you are doing a great job, and you're obviously bringing a lot of value to Royalwood. And so we greatly appreciate that. But I want to say this. If you are a part of Royalwood, you need to get around and meet these guys. If you want to follow them on social media, what's your IG? Why don't you give them that?
Jeremiah Lascuna.
Okay. I don't know what his Snapchat is. We're not going to give that out. Nate?
Passionate_official. That's the artist name.
Okay. All right. Passionate_official. If you want to check out the rest of this podcast, make sure you go back and listen to past episodes. We have a lot of cool people on the podcast. You can follow us on FB at @TheRWPodcast_, IG at @TheRW Podcast. You can check us out on YouTube, iTunes TV, Roku TV. There is no excuse for you not finding us. You can also check us out on YouTube, search Royalwood Church. Thank you so much. Check us out every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and we'll see you next week.